Kriti, I have to start with your background. So for those who are not watching this but listening to this, I'm looking at you, but I'm looking past you because behind you, you have an entire bookshelf that is incredibly organized and color-coded. So I'm half impressed and half in awe, and I don't think you can have three halves, but I'm also half like, when you look at the Better Homes and Gardens or like the magazines where the house is perfect and the family's perfect and you're almost a little bit disgusted, like that's amazing behind you. And,
and then you look at the floor and you're like, oh wait, this is what happens after a photo shoot.
Yeah, the floor, which just means you need more bookshelves so you
Exactly.
can put it up. But yeah, the color coordination is impeccable. I like that.
Thank you. And
Yeah,
I will
it's
credit all that to my mom for how many times I've made her do this every time I add new shelves.
yeah, it's relaxing in like a mesmerizing kind of peaceful, organized chaos type of way. I
It
don't know
is
if
the
those are the
room that I
right
like
words.
coming into to just like come in and read and just look at the books. I will say many times I have people that stay over, like friends and family, and we'll make a little bed in this room on the floor and we just sit here and we kind of have a drink and we'll look at the books and talk about the different books that we've read or funny stories to connect it. So it's a great conversation starter.
Oh, absolutely. So before we dive into our conversation today, for everyone listening, give us a quick background on who Kriti is.
Okay, so I'm Kriti Bhagat and I grew up in New England. I love saying that because I am a complete masshole. For anyone that knows me, they will truly tell you that it is very true, especially if you get into a car with me. And I went to UMass Amherst. I went to PCO for school. I did a cornea contact lens residency, and then I absolutely loved the world of teaching, so I ended up staying on and being a professor there for a while.
Okay.
After a few years, I realized my family and friends were in New England, and that whole mass whole thing called me back. So I came back. I moved back to Rhode Island about like 5 or 6 years ago, I'd say. Kind of beep bopped around. I always say I absolutely love optometry because there's so many different ways that you can practice. And so I kind of worked in corporate, I worked in ODMD practice, I worked in at a laser center, and then finally after kind of working all different places, the thing I absolutely love is contact lenses. And so I kind of wanted to open my own practice for that reason. And that's what I did about 2.5 years ago, opened my own practice, and probably the smartest decision and probably the hardest decision and maybe a little bit of dumb decision in there too, but it's okay. All great ideas have to start off like that.
Absolutely. And you said you love contacts. I have to tell you that when we were setting this up, and I had to text you that I was running late today because of patient care, and you texted back, don't worry about it. The name I had originally saved you in my phone when Bob Steinmetz had introduced us a couple years ago was because he introduced you as a badass contact lens doctor from Rhode Island. So in my phone, you're saved as Kriti, badass contact lens specialist in Rhode Island.
See,
And
look at that. Badass,
yep,
massful, all these
I
things coming together.
I'm seeing a theme, but yeah, it's kind of fun to see how small optometry is, even though we're on opposite ends of the country, about as far away as you can get from each other.
I know, complete opposite coasts.
Yeah,
Complete
so
opposite coasts. Yeah.
very
It's
cool.
it's really cool how everyone's so connected. I think that's the best kind of one of the best aspects about optometry, not only the way we can practice, but just there's so many ways to network and connect. And like you kind of mentioned, Bob, I would not be as happy as I am practicing the way I am if it wasn't for obviously Bob and Eric, who have been on the podcast multiple
Yeah,
times. And as you know them and I know them, they've really kind of changed multiple lives, but definitely my life. Definitely.
absolutely. It's nice to have that one person who says that you can do it and be your cheerleader in the corner, but not the just rah rah rah. It's rainbows and unicorns all the time. They can have the real talk with you too, but that encouraging, you can do
Oh
it,
yeah.
and we're
Eric
here
has
with you.
snacked reality back to me multiple times. Definitely multiple
Yes.
times. Not just in a world of budget and equipment, but probably also of, maybe it's not a good idea to do this. And then, you sit there and you're like, well, maybe I can. No, Critty, no, that is not how we're doing
Yeah.
this.
I like the starting with nice of the maybe it's not a good idea down to the absolutely not. right?
Yeah.
I gave you a chance to self-realize, and you didn't go there. So I'm just going to say no.
Absolutely. They're awesome people. Seriously.
They're good. Optometry is full of awesome people, and you being one of them. What I wanted to dive into today, because while we're optometrists, I don't think it defines us. And I, in the limited amount of time I'm on Instagram, came across your page, which isn't about you necessarily. It's brew.reading. And my first question was, is she reading with a coffee brew or with something a little bit more stronger brew? But to have almost 4,000 followers on a page about an eye doctor who reads is pretty cool and intriguing. So take us on this journey.
Thank you for finding me, I guess.
Yeah.
It was one of those things, I always tell patients this because patients always ask. It's like one of those things that my generation did at that time. It was COVID. You started an Instagram, right? I absolutely love reading. It's always been a place, I want to say, that I kind of run to, where I can hide and I can go away from. As we all know, optometry school is hard, and even to get there, there's so much studying. There's always studying, and books have always been my outlet. Whether life gets hard or school gets hard or work gets hard, I just love diving into the whole thing about books. I remember my dad used to always say, like, oh, what are you reading? And it was always fiction. It was always fiction. It was always some dumb book. And he would always come up to me and say, oh, why don't you read science and math books? Well, why are you reading Harry Potter? And it was just my outlet. So as kind of, I think COVID happened, I really realized, like, I love sharing my insights on books and kind of talking about my opinions of what I think a book, like what the tone is, or even editing books. I absolutely love doing that. And so I kind of noticed that a lot of people were creating Instagrams on their take on books. So I did that, but I wanted to do it with a little twist. Now, definitely the brew and the coffee make sense, but I will say I'm a huge beer drinker also. I absolutely love beer. So I thought it would be kind of neat to call it brew, as beer and coffee are both brewed. So I can go either way, because I like reading in the mornings, and I will tell you, I do not drink beer in the morning. I stick to coffee. But as it kind of rolls around halfway through the day, you start reading and you want to have beer. So I thought it would be nice to call it brew. And that's how the name Brew Reading came about.
I like it. No, it's pretty neat. I always wonder if the teenage version of ourselves would look at the adult version of ourselves and be proud of us or be disgusted of us. And as a parent of teenagers, sometimes their disgust is a badge of honor. I'm like, I'm doing something right. If you think what I'm doing is super nerdy and disgust in the sense of like the teenage disgust.
Mine would probably think, oh, you're not supposed to be drinking. That's probably what my teenage version would say, because that's probably what my parents would say. So yeah.
Doing something wrong.
Exactly.
So do you remember one of the earliest books that like you read that you really that pulled you in and like made you just love reading?
Oh, that's a really good question. Hands down, like so many other people. I mean, my answer is going to be so cliche, but Harry Potter. Yeah. I can tell you right now, it was my 6th grade teacher who introduced me to Harry Potter, and that's the year that I really started reading. I remember, had one of those charts at the back of the classroom, and every time you finished reading a book, and there was something called, I think, Reading Counts, where you had to take a little quiz on a book that you read, and if you passed, you put a sticker on the chart, and every time you had 5 stickers, you got a prize. And, overachiever over here. I had like 3 lines, and so I had gone through all the prizes 3 times, and I remember one of the first few books that I read was Harry Potter, and that's probably where I started reading the way I do.
That's super cool. It's and you just made me feel old, because Harry Potter didn't come out until I was 21. It wasn't quite in 6th grade. The James Patterson was mine, with the Women's Murder Club. Friend's mom, one of my
oh my gosh,
friends
I
at school,
love
his
James
mom.
Patterson.
Yes,
I have so many. I think it's so neat that he's coming out with all these books with celebrities. Have you read some of the recent ones that he's come out with?
Yeah, they're super neat. That's my. I read 2 different books. I usually have 2 going at the same time, and one of them is nonfiction,
Yeah.
But my go to bed on my Kindle that needs to be updated because it's super old and getting slow, that's my lay in bed and just fall asleep reading is usually Harry Potter. The kind of guilty pleasure. I don't really have to hyper pay attention. I can kind of get the storyline and go from there.
I know. It's funny how through our lives, I think our tastes and what we like to read and things change throughout. Like I recently, and it probably has a lot to do with owning a business, I've been reading a lot of nonfiction, a lot of business books, a lot of probably self-help books in that category. And I kind of like you, I always have like two books going. One is usually a fiction book and one is usually a nonfiction, and I try to alternate.
Yeah.
At first, I will say when I used to fly at the airport, I used to kind of read nonfiction, so it looked like I was reading something, knowledgeable and not just, crap books. And then now that I have the Kindle, I can read whatever and nobody knows.
Yeah, exactly. So if you had your choice, do you prefer books? Do you prefer reading on the Kindle? What's your kind of platform of choice, and then what's your go-to platform?
Absolutely love books. I need a physical book. And I don't know what it is, but I love paperback. I think it's just the way you can hold it. So I absolutely love physical books. But what started happening was I would go off on vacations and I'd need 4 or 5 books because I'd get through so many of them. And, packing, you have to pack light, I guess. Because, every time I would upgrade the bag so I would have 3 or 4 books, it just didn't work out for me. I know that sounded super bratty, but I literally have to upgrade my bag just so I can put books in it. So a couple years ago, I finally invested in a Kindle and absolutely love it. I love having the Kindle, but I don't think it's really saved any money for me because I end up buying the Kindle book, falling in love with it, and then I feel like I still need to buy the physical book so I can have it in the library behind me. So yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. I told myself I was buying Kindle to save money, but then I spent more money on books. I ended up reading them more.
Do you like taking notes in books, especially the nonfiction one?
I love taking notes in books, which is funny. My nephew, and it's been a while, I need to bring him back on, but he's a big reader, and I think he's 10 or 11 now. But last year, the year before I had him on, we read John Acuff together, soundtracks.
Oh.
And my sister had called me, and he was struggling, and she wanted advice, and I knew he read, so I bought him the soundtrack books from John Acuff. He had just been at the Vision Source Exchange, and it was awesome. And so I told him when I sent it to him that he could write in it, and he goes, "You can't write in books." And I said, "No, this is yours. I want you to highlight, write." I showed him pictures of mine. He's like, "I can't do it." So I got the book back, and the inside page, I wrote this big, dedication to him, and all over in a big Sharpie marker. I'm like, "Look, it is yours. You can do what you want with it." So I was trying to help him, but I have to interact with the text on nonfiction.
No, you've read so many nonfiction. I love following you on Book Nerds, like just listening to all the books. And I think so many of those books can be so relatable. I think a lot of the points that you make can be relatable to private practice, to optometrists, to just a healthcare professional in general. It's so versatile. What would you say has been the most impactful book that you've read in the last couple of years?
I think the most impactful one would have been the first one we started Book Nerds with Buy Back Your Time. Mm-hmm. And I think it was impactful not just because the book was, but because of the conversation that it started with Brianna and Kyle and I. And reading a book is one thing, discussing a book is significantly more powerful, and I never appreciated that. I was the kid in school that just, if you give me a project or a team project, I end up doing the whole thing because I work well in groups, but let me just get it done. Yeah. I don't want to slow down and talk about it. But having to talk about it and listening to their intakes and listening to their perspectives and insights, I said intakes, I meant insights, was really powerful, and that led me to getting a virtual assistant. That book really launched Book Nerds. It launched a lot of the discussions that we've since had and things that I have had and how I changed my life and managed the life. So I think that was probably the most impactful. The one we just read for this upcoming Book Nerds month, How the Mighty Fall, was really interesting. Looking at Jim Collins, and he's always got good stuff. but looking at his analysis of the companies that fall apart and how they fall apart.
Yeah.
That was I've clicked on a lot, or taken a lot of screenshots and pictures and highlights on that one. But I like them all. They all give you a little bit of a different flavor, and sometimes they're the same thing, but a different flavor of the same thing.
I'll tell you, buy back your time. Absolutely, I agree. That was one of those that lately I've been feeling so overwhelmed because I do everything in my practice, right? It's a young practice. You're the office manager, you're the doctor, you're everything. And how to buy back your time, that just the book itself, it just opens up your world to like, oh, wait, delegate or prioritize. And not just those words, but how to do that. And then what you said about conversations is so big. Book clubs were such a big deal post-COVID. During that, like not even post-COVID, but in that COVID era, I was a part of so many book clubs while I was on Instagram, and I created some amazing friendships during that time. Books bring people together. Books spark so many conversations, and all of our conversations come from our perspectives and our experience. And it's amazing to hear what everyone has to say. And when you guys discussed buy back your time, that is exactly what inspired me to get a virtual assistant. And I am telling you, absolutely love my virtual assistants, love working with them, and I love what they've done to help me be a better leader. And it's just amazing how it's like conversations that change that. Because you think you know it all, or you think you're doing it perfect. And it's amazing what a simple conversation can do. And it's awesome to do it with a book. Whether it's nonfiction or even like some of the crappy romances I read. Oh my gosh, I've like connected with so many reps and other doctors. I remember being at a summit last year, and I was sitting next to one of the faculty members. We were speakers, and this faculty member is very accomplished. And I won't tell you who it is because of the books we were talking about, but I am telling you, it was funny because she's so accomplished. She's up on stage. She's one of the big hosts that's there. And she's taking out this book out of her purse and reading it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're reading that? Oh, we connected so much. And it's complete smut book. Like I am telling you, I call it a smut book, but it was complete smut. And it was awesome to connect that way. So books
That's
really
cool.
do connect.
Well, we all have to have an escape. And it's funny. What I like about books is it makes because you can't argue with what's in print. You can have an opinion about it, but you can't argue about it. And instead of saying, well, I think this and you think that, we're now we've got a common ground that we are discussing, right? Because you can't change the words on the page, and so I think that really is where the conversation becomes super valuable, because now we both have to speak the same language, and that's the language of what's been written down. And if you're going to challenge it, you've got to challenge it with something else that's written down, and you can move along. So it takes the world from an I think this or an I feel that to, well, here's what I'm perceiving the author meant, or here's how I'm interpreting what the author meant. It's a little bit a different way of approaching it, but I think it's a stronger way.
So I love that you say that about perceiving and what the author thinks. Because of the world of Instagram, I've been asked to edit books. So I work with HarperCollins, I work with Penguin and Simon Schuster, and sometimes I get different copies of books that are either early release or the manuscript itself. And I found that the world of publishing is so interesting because they have different levels of how engaged they want you to be as a co-editor. And so I've been a part of they'll send me a manuscript and I can grammar edit it, which I love doing because it makes me, I think, a better writer. But then the stuff that's cool is they'll ask you to be a part of a conversation where they'll ask, read these 3 chapters in the introduction and tell us what you feel. Or they'll give you a journal and they'll ask you to follow one character, and they give that job to 10 different people for 10 different characters. And you bring it back and you talk about what your thoughts were on this character and what they did. And the author wants to know that. And they change the feel of the book or like that character sometimes. And then you read the final edit of the book that was released and you're like, wait, that's not what the character did. Wait,
The
I hated this
original.
character before. And so you go back and you read it. It's just amazing how much our perception or somebody else's perception can affect how the writer writes the book. So it's kind of
That's
neat.
cool.
A publishing world is just really so cool in that sense that they do a lot nowadays to engage with other readers. And it's not just the writer writing the book. A lot of times it's a really big group project.
That's cool. I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
So
I
I
thought it was
love it
just
because a lot of these books that I have, especially a lot of the ones that are in the white backing, they're all early release books. So sometimes I'll get a project with it, or sometimes I'll just ask you what the feel is, and you read it, and then you actually go back and you can read the final version. That's you go to an independent bookstore, Barnes and Nobles, or somewhere and get the book, and you read it, and it's different. It's a little different.
that's cool.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's
I
cool
had
to
no
be a
idea
part of
that
those
they were.
projects. I love it.
Is that for fiction and nonfiction? Do you get both types of projects? How does that work?
Yeah, so a lot of times you can be a part of, like, they'll have the influencer program, or they'll have the editor programs. Sometimes you're a part of their editing team, and whoever the person coordinating is will reach out to you depending on what your preference is. So for me, I kind of have a wide preference of things because I really like reading different books. And so some editors or, like I said, project managers will reach out and they'll ask you if you want to be a part of it. My problem is I have to learn to say no because I feel like I do a lot and then I keep saying yes to these books and I'm like, oh no, I have to get these done.
Well, that was the last book we read on essentialism, and so the we're doing the 21-day challenge on that right now. And the one of the challenges the other day was if it wasn't a hell yes, it's a hell no. Although if you really love doing it, there's too many hell yeses, so that's
Way
you
too
got to
many.
figure out how to yes. That's cool. I had no idea that much went into writing books. I was just excited. One of my authors that I started following because I'd finally read all of James Patterson's stuff. His name's Matt Rogers, and I got on a list to where we would get free copies, Kindle copies of his books coming out, and he finally got picked up, I think, by Simon and Schuster. Don't quote me. But the next one I had to pay for, and at first I was like, "This is weird. I've been reading you for years for free, and now I've got to, pay $5." Or it was nothing, but it was kind of neat to see
Yeah.
that somebody has grown up and got to that level.
It's cool to see authors that way. Like I feel like from COVID time, there was an author that I think a lot of us may have read. It was a book called The Silent Patient, and it was by Alex Michaelides, and he had a huge debut. It was a mystery book, and I'm telling you, to the last page, you had no idea what happened. And I'm sure a lot of people listening today have read The Silent Patient because it was a very popular book. And he released it right around COVID time, and it blew up. It was so neat to be able to just Instagram him when he was in the beginning stages, and not many people knew about him and get to know him because now he's huge. Like every time he releases a book, it's a huge release party, and he's just like I think his book is translated in over 30 different languages. So it's kind of cool to see someone's trajectory as an author that way, and
That
you
is
just
cool.
feel so connected.
That's cool, especially you when you were there when it happened, and and whatnot. So, are there any books that you go back to frequently, and occasionally will go back and just read and reread?
Very few, but I think it would has to be like self-help books. Like Atomic Habits is one of
Good one.
them. Yeah. I think that's one of the ones that I think I go back and I look at, and every now and then I'm like I need to pick up a trait or remember to do that. So, cuz I think that one was a really good one to just change our habits and talk about
Yeah,
habits.
I agree. That was a really good one. One of mine
Especially
is
when it told me that I should go to, Lululemon and go shopping and make my habits really something I love doing. So yeah, make it look good. Oh yeah. Oh,
make it look.
that
Yeah, I can. Yeah. Wwhy are you back here? I had to.
my book
James
told
Clear.
me I had to.
James Clear
If I
said I
want
had
to
to
go
come
to the
back here.
gym, I have to
Yeah.
look good to go to the gym.
Yeah, I like that. That's funny.
The
I
things that
didn't
you
get.
think.
I didn't take that away from that book. I I don't
I
think I
think
needed
most people
help.
took better things away than what I did.
Well, I mean, I've still got a Lulu addiction. I just didn't get it from there. I don't think. Uh, no, I like. I would go back to Tim Grover's Relentless. He was Michael Jordan's trainer, and it's not a warm fuzzy book by any means. But I think sometimes it helps me understand why I get hyper focused on something.
Yeah.
And I've used it as justification. I've used it as inspiration when I needed a kick in the pants. But it's definitely not a warm fuzzy, but it was kind of neat to see behind how he built great people.
You go back often to books? Like reread them?
There's two that that one, and I usually will listen to it, audiobooks, more than I'll read it when I go back to them, just because I'm in the car and maybe I'm in a funk and I need something. But I'll listen to that one, and then one of my all-time favorites, which we probably will never do on Book Nerds, but it's written by, what is his name? Mark Manson, and the book is The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F.
Yes.
And it's
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's back here. I love it.
yeah, it's stoicism, but it's like stoicism from your best friend who's going to tell it to you how you need to hear it.
Why is it that I absolutely love books that have like some inappropriate word on in the title? Why? I have so many of those books. I could probably find you 10 easily here.
Yeah, it's just
Like they just tell you how it is.
I'm a smart person, but sometimes I'm just not very deep, and so you just got to lay it out for me, simple, put it in front of my face, because I'm not gonna pick up on the subtle message. And going back to the conversation on like what the author was intending, I remember arguing with or being in English class in high school, my senior year of high school, and I can't remember what the book was, but the author wanted. We had a whole discussion all day long about why she was wearing a crimson jacket, not a red jacket, not something else. And to this day, I can't figure out what her point was, other than just to kill an entire day worth of worthless conversation. And so I'm sure there's a point. I'm sure it was way over my head, but sometimes, I need it, right in my face.
Wasn't that the whole point of AP English or English class in general? Like,
Well,
I feel like we discuss so much on one page or one chapter about things.
Oh, it's what's funny is now I run a book club with Kyle Clutie and Brianna Rue. I passed my college English class by making a deal with the professor who was chair of the department that I would not take any other English classes at San Diego State, so I wouldn't have to subject anybody else to my poor writing and lack of insights into books.
And look at what you do now.
And here I am, right, writing curriculum for education and leading a book club. So life has a funny way of flipping on you.
There you go. You should let him know.
Yeah.
Like,
Next time they ask me for a donation.
My podcast.
It's kind of fun, but it's different when you get to do it for yourself as opposed to being told what to do.
Absolutely. Like people always ask, like, what do you do for fun? And I tell them I like to read. And it's so funny how reading's such a chore when you're younger for many people. And then you get to the point where we are now, and reading is fun. It's like a moment that I can take as a break. I can kind of walk away from the world, and it's just something I look forward to, and I love reading. So I'm going to ask you this. What is your favorite place to read? Or where is your favorite place?
So I'll answer in two different ones. If I'm physically reading a book, I love sitting either on my back deck. I'm in San Diego, but my back deck overlooks the largest city-owned park in the state of California. So it's got a tiny little mountain range, or my front deck, because I've got old school. I love a good rocking chair. So we got Adirondack rocking chairs.
Ooh.
Yeah, right. So, because my wife did not want to have our house look like the old person house, and I said I need a rocking chair. So she found the Adirondack rocking chairs, which are golden. So I like those. If I'm listening to a book, then it's on a run. I like putting headphones on, and it'll be weird because I don't remember what was said, but I remember the conversation I had with the book while I was listening to it, and that usually solves a lot of problems when I need to fix something. That's where I go. Hey everyone, a quick heads up about something I'm really excited about. On June 24th, during the AOA meeting, We'll be part of a live interactive event that takes a deep dive into how AI is transforming our practices and our profession. We're calling it the Gateway to the Revolution in Optometry. If you're a doctor, a staff member, somebody in the industry who's wondering how to actually use AI, not just talk about it, this session's for you. We'll cover how to demystify AI, ways to leverage data for better patient care and practice performance, lessons from other industries, and it definitely is a live AI workshop to show you real-world applications. And the best part, the event is free thanks to our partnership with the AOA, but space is limited. So head to gatewaytour.ai to grab your spot. Again, that's gatewaytour.ai. See you there. The Myopia Collective. CooperVision and the AOA have partnered in a groundbreaking initiative to change the way optometrists in the U.S. treat children with myopia. The purpose of the Myopia Collective is to rally the profession of optometry and its allies to interrupt the status quo and elevate the new standard of care for children with myopia. Every individual is encouraged to become a member of the collective. By joining, you commit to taking action to help slow the progression of myopia in children. You'll receive updates and information about the collective and its work in the fight against myopia, gain access to educational opportunities and resources offered by the collective, and hear from change agents, the ambassador optometrists selected to serve as advocates for community and policy change that facilitates the mission of the collective. Scan the QR code or click on the link in the show notes to join the collective today. In the past, our focus revolved around prescribing MacuHealth or MacuHealth Plus to patients at risk of macular degeneration, while also recommending it to collegiate and professional athletes for enhanced contrast sensitivity in sports performance. However, this year's introduction of the Life Meter has been a game changer. The Life Meter revealed a concerning truth. Many of my patients have alarmingly low skin carotenoid levels, indicating potential deficiencies in essential body tissues like the retina and brain. Supported by over 30 peer-reviewed publications, Life Meter's accuracy, consistency, and effectiveness has been demonstrated across 2,000 subjects with diverse backgrounds. With this newfound insight, I can now have meaningful conversations about carotenoid levels with all of my patients, even those who may seem outwardly healthy. To learn more about this empowering technology, feel free to contact your MacuHealth representative or click on the link in the show notes. Together, let's optimize patient care and elevate their well-being.
It's funny, I can't get into audiobooks.
Really?
I can't. I don't know. I've tried so much. I feel like I physically need to see and read the words. Yeah, for me to process them. Because I'll listen to an audiobook for an hour in the car and I have no idea what happened. None whatsoever. It's like it was like white noise in the back. So yeah, it's just funny how we process things, right?
It is. Well, there's different types of books. I don't like audiobooks that are fiction. I don't like that. If I'm reading a self-help book, so a lot of the books we do on the Book Nerds, I'll actually read it and listen to it at the same time. And depending on where I am, the conversation just becomes deeper. So I might be further ahead in the print version or further ahead in the audio. Kind of history nonfiction. So I went down a rabbit hole with Bill O'Reilly's Killing series and the history behind it. So that I really liked listening on the audio version because it just his intonation and how he was talking. I could hear it more of a story than when I was trying to read it. So yeah, I never thought about it till this conversation. But there's different books that I'll want to consume differently.
Yeah, now I want to try. I haven't tried it yet, but I've heard of graphic audiobooks where they have the way they read it is kind of like you have noise in the background. Like if you're hearing the car or you're on the highway, you'll hear that noise in the background
That's
while
cool.
the author is speaking. But then they also have different characters. So if the main character is speaking, it's in that main character's voice. So it's a little bit more animated. I don't know if they call it graphic or animated audiobooks, but they're definitely kind of up and coming, and a lot of people really like them. So I've heard
That's
of a lot
cool.
of friends that listen to that. So maybe I'll try that and see if that works better. But
That's cool. Well, I'm going to really make myself feel old, but I remember as a kid going on road trips, and when it hit 8 or 9 o'clock, my dad would put on whatever radio station had the storytelling, and for the next hour you'd listen to the storytelling, and same thing, it had multiple characters coming in, and so it was almost like you were listening to a movie, but they gave you enough details so you didn't have to watch it.
oh my gosh, do you remember in the newspaper, like they used to have the chapter in the newspaper. Every Sunday they would have
Yep.
one chapter in there. I loved reading that, and then you would look forward to reading the next
The
chapter
next
the next
chapter.
week. Oh,
Yep. The
I
continual
still
is
get a
like a.
newspaper.
Do you?
Yeah, I still get the New York Times Sunday, and I
Okay.
love going through it. I mean, I have a stack of probably 6 or 7 of them that I haven't read yet because I'm never home. But I love getting it. And then every now and then I'll open it up, and look through it and just flip through it to see things and read articles. But I love getting the newspaper.
That's cool. I just went straight to the comic section.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually
And
like reading the book part.
the book part, yeah, those are good too. But I like the comics. So in fact, I think the very first book I ever read was Calvin and Hobbes from front to back.
Oh,
The
yeah.
graphic novels. Those were classic. I grew up with them.
It's funny, you think back and you look at it, like, I know you asked, like, which ones were the first books that got you in, but the more you think about it, you think of, like, Matilda, the BFG, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, then you
Oh
think of,
yeah.
like, Beverly Cleary, like, there's so
Hmm.
many books. The Giving Tree, you keep going
Oh
back and
yeah.
back, and it's like, wow. And it's kind of weird because in my library, I actually have a whole section of all those picture books so that when I have friends whose kids come over or anything, I love taking them out, and those are all books that kind of my friends and I have read when we were kids. So it's nice for them to see that. So Dr.
That's
Seuss,
cool.
all of them.
Oh, Dr. Seuss was great, and he lived in San Diego for quite a bit. So a lot of the like the weird plants and like trees that he drew in his books are,
Yeah.
are taken from different plant life that we have here. So
Oh, that's
it's
so
it's
cool. I
kind of
bet you
yeah.
there's probably monuments and stuff there to recognize it.
University of San Diego, UCSD, California, San Diego. Their library either is named after him or has a section after it. Whoever's listening to this and went to UCSD will send me some hate mail because I don't know it. But I know there's a big section that's dedicated to him, which is kind of neat.
Yeah. That is neat when you see authors succeeding like that. You think of other, like, I don't know, celebrities and you think of other things, but it's really neat to see authors succeed and getting that recognition because so much of what things are built on and so much of what we do has to do with reading. And I'm sure all of us have stories connecting to a book or reading at some point. So,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
So do you write it all too, or do you just you like to read and edit?
Read and edit mostly, but when it comes to writing, it's optometric writing. So I don't know if it's like, to me, I love it. But to others, I'm sure it's not exciting writing. So it's not like I'm sitting here writing a fiction novel or anything like that. I'm writing an article on keratoconus.
There's a skill set in there because to convey something properly with words is a lot harder than it seems.
Oh, yeah.
I think 100% of the articles that have had my name on it were ghostwritten. Now, I was heavily involved, but I was, we walked through an interview and then somebody kind of wrote and then we edited it from there. But to be able to put down and write an article and put one out frequently, that's a tough skill set that I'm always
It's
impressed when
hard
people can
because
do it.
there's so many things you're looking at. And I think recently, after being an editor for so many books, I think it's been kind of bad for me because now I look way too much into what I'm writing, right? I'm looking at the warmth. All right, what's the tone? What words am I using? Ooh, is this really relaying a nice message? Or I'll text my brother randomly all the time and I'm like, how does this sentence sound? And he's not in healthcare. And so he's like, I don't know, sounds great. What's wrong with it? And he's like, there's something wrong or you wouldn't have asked me, right? So I think it's good and bad. So it's definitely good and bad. But you're right, writing is really, it's tough for a lot of our colleagues that are writing a lot of these. First of all, I hate citations. So that's probably the reason I don't want to write, is because of citations.
Yes. I was happy never to have to write one of those papers again. And I say that, but at some point I'm sure I'll have to write one. But
I'm definitely more of a reader than I'll say writer.
consume. So when you, because I think we all have an artistic, creative side of us that needs to come out. So if it's not writing, what's your creative, artistic side besides color coordinating your book collection?
That's a good question. I always just thought it was the reading part of it.
Okay.
Yeah, just kind of the reading part of it. I don't, people say I'm creative. I don't really kind of feel that I do a lot of creative things, but maybe on the creative side, I would say photography. And that's
Okay.
why I really like the Instagram and the opportunity to take pictures. I feel like lately I haven't been able to do that, but that was one of the things I really like, kind of putting the books together with different themes or different things from the books and taking pictures. So I would say
Yeah.
my creative outlet would probably be photography. And maybe one day I wish I could like kind of do more of that.
Nice. Well, if you weren't going to say that, I was going to call it out because your Instagram certainly looks like a stroll through just uh, uh, one of the catalogs you'd see on a beautiful coffee table of just kind of I wish my house looked like this. I wish my books looked like this, and my coffee looked exactly that way. Because my Keurig just doesn't make my coffee like apparently your Keurig makes your
No, you
coffee.
should actually see how much work goes into that. I will be honest, there are multiple cups of coffee and I'm trying to mix the right amount. And then I'm like, well, now I have 6 cups of coffee and who's drinking this? So yeah, there's, I give everyone that does this so much more than I do. And kind of, we call them just influencers, but there's so much work that goes into these pictures and what message they convey. And I think that's why I've taken a little break from posting more and more pictures because it's a lot of work. It's a lot to put together, and you want to try to get the right feel. I have had a couple authors reach back to me and talk to me about how they loved some of the setup I had for the books, and then I've actually had some authors say that's not what the book was about, and it's like, uh-oh, I'm sorry, but that's what I felt. So
That's
yeah.
what I felt. That's interesting. It's I would never have thought that as an author you'd be. It makes sense, right? It's kind of like how we view our practices. It's our little babies,
Yeah.
and we're very protective of it. And it hurts when somebody gives criticism, even if it's constructive and right. Um,
Oh yeah. Every time somebody
so
says something about parking in my office, whew, I'll be the first one to defend that one.
yeah,
Well, it was hard enough to open this practice, so I think parking is something I'll compromise on. Right? We get so defensive on it. So yeah, I'm
yes.
sure authors feel the same way.
So yeah, it's fun. I will tell you though that the one picture that on yours that drives me the most nuts though is and I just went back and found it. I remember seeing it a while ago. You have a tic-tac-toe set in there, like a coffee table type tic-tac-toe, and there's no winner. And I always love a good winner in tic-tac-toe. And I was counting. I'm like, well, maybe the O's are going to hit, but there's not enough X's, and the O's have all been played. So clearly, it's a Cats game. Like, I need a good winner.
How many times does that happen though? How many times does that happen? So often.
Yeah. Well, that's why I need a winner. I'm like, I want to see, that game be over and not have to keep playing and playing and playing.
I'll make sure I put that picture everywhere I see you.
Oh, that's fun. Although I've got a 15-year-old grandson who he loves putting things away. So we got the giant Connect Four, and he likes putting them in there. And he's won a couple of games just because we're not paying attention too well. And I look down, I'm like, son of a gun, I got beat by a 15-month-old who can't even talk.
That's always the best because then you go back and you're replaying that so many times in your mind, going, "How did I lose that?"
Yeah, yeah.
So
And,
tell
and,
me,
and
you do all these things. I feel like you're constantly working and you're kind of all in this, I want to say, administrative space. What do you do to be creative? And you can't say reading. You can't say that.
I can't say. I think that the podcast conversations are pretty neat. I really look forward to the conversations, and thankfully I've got a really good team. I've got a fantastic producer in Skylar, great support with Chris, and my virtual assistant does a lot of the marketing and the social media stuff because I hate that. But I think the conversations are neat, and a lot of them will carry over to additional text conversations and small text groups, and just seeing what's available. And most of the ideas end up kind of just dying on their own. But I think that's my creative. I did try to pick up photography mostly so that I could not have to talk to somebody at my daughter's soccer games. We talk all day at work. That not talking sometimes is nice,
Nope.
and so plus if you have a decent enough camera, you can walk anywhere on the soccer field and nobody cares. They just let you
Ah,
go. and so I get some good angles. But yeah, I think that kind of the podcast and just the stories we get to share with people are my creative outlet, because you definitely don't want to read my writing, and I mean, I can do a decent stick figure, but that's about it.
See, I feel like, the world of podcasts, I was just thinking before we started our conversation here, it's like, you have to be a person that can speak to someone, kind of pick up on things and keep things going. Like, that's really creative. Like, you're thinking of things, your brain works in a different way, right? But I think it's kind of cool that you said, all the opportunities that it creates. What do you feel like in, all the episodes that you've done? What's one of the coolest opportunity or connection that you've found through this?
Wow, that's a good question. Probably the most impactful one is the story with Brianna and I when we met. She reached out 18 months ago on LinkedIn and just said, "Hey, can I be a guest?" Which the answer was yes. Sometimes finding guests is tricky, especially over the holiday time. It just timings and schedules don't match up, and that conversation itself, grew into what we have as Book Nerds now, and her and Kyle and I have a very active discussion group. We're all very much entrepreneurial and creating, and that comes with lots of frustrations, and you need a team that can celebrate with you, and then not let you have too much of a pity pie. And I think the three of us are really good with that. A lot of our colleagues do really cool things that just are outside of optometry. I mean, I would have never known that you edit books, and that Simon and Schuster and like Penguin and the companies that I'm buying books from are reaching out to you to get insights on their books, which I think is super awesome and neat and fun. I think just learning about people on the back end, but yeah, the longest, probably most impactful was the conversation with Brianna.
Yeah, that's kind of neat. Like, it's once again, it is such a small world in optometry, but I feel like we so focus on optometry that I love listening to a lot of conversations you're having, because it does help you look at someone and like kind of look past the optometry part of it, right? Yeah. And kind of look at the fun part of it, which I think I also love Instagram for, because we have so many of our colleagues that have a professional Instagram page, right? Yep. But it's so neat to see, there's a couple of people that love drinking old fashions, and like you see all the different old fashions they've, had in different places. There's people that love traveling. There's a couple of other optometrists that have bookstagrams, and I love following them, because then you're looking at it and you're like, oh wow, that's neat, or hey, you're reading this, right? So it's kind of cool to see who we are outside of just, hey, I'm Dr. Bhagat, and this is what I do, or it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's very cool. I totally agree with you. We'd all be boring if we were just monochromatic, and it's the flavors that we each bring to the page, and I'm like you. I enjoy watching some of the optometry influencers, but I enjoy more people that are sharing what they're doing outside. I mean, even as simple as Dave Kading's in his Mug Mondays.
Oh my gosh, I was just going to say that. His Mug Mondays. I love looking at what mug does he have today?
Yeah, and I don't know if the episode I recorded with him is out yet or not, but he was funny. He's like, yeah, people now are just like giving me mugs and randomly, like, my wife, had to say no more. You can't keep bringing these mugs home. And
it's funny how people start picking up on these things with you, because I've gone to different meetings, and I will tell you, like, we somehow always somebody talks about books, and then I have a book and I'm shipping it to someone. So. And that's happened a couple of times where I've had an early release, and an optometry friend has reached out and said, ooh, wait, you have this early release? And I'm like, yes, I just finished it. Do you want it? Because it doesn't release for another 2 months yet. So that's awesome. I've had like a little thing where I've shared books with people before the release, just so that, they can read it and get excited and hype it up. So.
Oh yeah, that's super cool. So what are you reading right now?
So it's funny, there's 2 books that I'm reading, and both of them are actually nonfiction, which is very rare. Probably until tomorrow's flight, where I'll pick up another fiction. So, yeah. The first one, it's actually Ted McElroy told me about it.
Oh, that's a good one.
All It Takes Is a Goal. And so definitely trying to better understand that just looking at kind of get something done. It doesn't have to be complete, but some is better than none. And understanding that concept and having that goal, and creating it. So I think looking at the big picture further instead of just getting boggled down with, oh my gosh, I don't have an employee in the office today, right? You just let's look at the big picture. So I have that one, and then see, both of the things are things I'm struggling with. So it's always so personal. I started this book. It's called Burnout, and it's the secret to unlocking the stress cycle. And I think burnout is a conversation we really are starting to have. I'm seeing it more, but it's definitely not a conversation we have because burnout is a sign of weakness, and it's kind of portrayed that way. And I struggle, and I am struggling with that. So I'm trying to find a way of not burning out because me being burnout doesn't help anyone else.
Nope.
So yeah, those are the two books that I'm reading right now.
Nice. The first one I've read twice. I love that one. And Acuff is fantastic. I got to meet him behind the stage before he went on after the last exchange.
So jealous.
And I love the story because sometimes your heroes and mentors are not who you think they are, and then sometimes they very much are. And I was walking down the hallway at the Gaylord, and I saw a guy come walking towards me, looking around, not really looking lost, but he could tell he was trying to kind of figure out where to go. And as we got closer, I said, "Are you John?" And he's like, "Yeah." I said, "John Acuff?" And he goes, "Yeah," which I can appreciate would be weird. I said, "I'm Aaron. You look like you're headed towards." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm speaking at this conference." I'm like, "Well, I'm helping to run it. Like, let me walk you backstage." And he goes, "Oh, cool, that'd be great." So I got to walk with him back. The most normal person ever. And I talked about the book soundtracks, and he said that he's like, "Yeah, the soundtrack that currently we're using in our family, because his daughter was in Europe, was Some is Better Than None." And so, I can get some sleep, but I don't really want to sleep. I want to go and see the everything that we can here. And so it was really neat. We had about a 25-minute conversation, and just the most normal person ever. But I've consumed a lot of his stuff, and it's very easy to consume and just simple and spot on. I think I mentioned earlier, just give it to me simple. And I really liked his.
It must be such a vision source thing, because I'm telling you, I have these meetings with Ted, and Ted's really kind of he talks a lot about the books and points from it, and so I'm starting to pick up on it, and now I'm like, I want to go to one of these things that, like, I think he has different conferences. John has different conferences throughout, and it's like, I want to go to one of them, and I just, he simplifies it. So I really like reading his books.
Yeah, I liked him. So right now I'm reading, we just started The AI Driven Leader. Amy Rudser actually gave it to me, and I don't know how I feel about all this AI stuff. I think that a lot of times the term's being used not fully appropriately, and I just want to understand more, but I want to understand how to use it. So and I love leadership principles. Again, that sounds super nerdy, but it's a whole field of study that is quite fascinating. So I just started that one. I'm 2 pages into it, but so far it seems interesting.
Well, you're gonna have to text me a picture of that cover, because I agree with you. I think everywhere I go, people are like, "Oh no, AI," and it's like the conversation shouldn't be, "Oh no, AI." It should be different. Like, you should ask, "What is AI? What do you mean by AI?" There's so many, facets of it. So I would love to read that, because I think AI is definitely a conversation we're talking about more and more, and it's like when the computer first came. It's like when the iPhone first came, and you may not have loved every part of it, and maybe not all parts were positive, but it's definitely something that's a disruptor, and it's going to be here, and it's going to stay. So,
yep, absolutely, yeah. And so which is why I know that the whole Gateway tour that Vision Source and others are supporting is I think, super important to have that conversation. It's the beginning of the journey, not the end of the journey. And by the way, I'll put a link to that in the notes if anybody's going, wondering what this whole gateway thing is. I think it's worth having, and you've got some heavy hitters with Masood Nafi and Chris Wolf and others who are presenting it. I think that part of the challenge, and you brought up burnout, I know we're getting close to an hour, but I'm really getting passionate on this point, is the really understanding ourselves and being in control. When I work with other clinics and I work with my own clinic, somebody once told me that it's all a game. And I took that a step further and said, if we're playing a game, if we know the rules of the game, we can play the game. And if I'm Tom Brady and I know exactly what the inflation of a football needs to be, right? I'm not making any sort of.
Ouch!
I'm not
not cool.
Hey, I'm just going to leave it right there. You take what you want, but you can win the game, right? There's no doubt.
Just saying.
He won.
Whatever it is.
He won the game, and he's the GOAT. But it's a lot different than when the game plays you, because you don't know the rules of the game. And you think you're playing soccer and some big dude's tackling you. So learning the rules of the game, and I think that part of that is learning who you are and your identity, and understanding your identity, because when you know who you are, it's tough to get burnt out. When you're struggling with your identity, every day feels either overwhelming or it feels just Groundhog Day back and forth. And so I don't mean that in any sort of negative sense, but sometimes it's understanding what drives us, what's our passion, what's our purpose, what really gets us excited, and in a maybe even in a challenging, tough way, but what gets us excited. Yeah. And so I think that AI is one of those. Like, this is a whole new adventure. We all went to optometry school to hate our lives for 4 years because you were stuck in the library and studying and tests twice a week, and you were under all this stress. But I don't look back at it saying I hate my life for 4 years. I look back, I'm like, that was great times. I loved those 4 years, and they weren't easy, but they were fun, but in a challenging, I can overcome and do hard things type of way. So I think that's how I kind of look at AI, is like, this is another fun challenge to attack.
Absolutely. I love that you said you have to kind of understand yourself. I think that's the whole purpose behind all these kind of nonfiction, self-help, or business books. I think most of them have you stop and think about you. And it's really, it's all about you and how you are. Because you are a leader, so you're leading, and you have people around you, and you have to be the best that you feel like you are, right? Yep. You have to be confident. All these things kind of come back to who you are. And it's cool to read these books, because I feel selfish when I'm reading them, because I do feel like it's about me. Like, it is all about me, and I talk about me. While throughout the day, we do things for everyone else, right? And these books make us stop and think about it. But yeah, I think you really kind of nailed it with the whole burnout thing. So.
Yeah. Well, you summed it up perfectly right then, right? It's learning who you are and having that conversation. And even the ones that I disagree with, I'm still having a very positive conversation from. So I don't think I've ever read a bad book. I've read books I'll never read again.
Yeah, I've read a lot of books that I will kind of what we call DNF, so you do not finish, and so or did not finish. Yeah, so.
Oh, can you do that? Can you start a book and not finish it?
Listen, it's really hard for me to do that. Very, very hard, and I will struggle through it. But I have learned, and my friends on Instagram have really helped me understand this, that it is okay to not love a book, and you don't have to finish every book.
Wow. So
this is where library books are great, because then you're not committed to them, and then you can return them back, and you don't have to keep them.
My wife started a series, and I'm like, do you like it? And she's like, it's okay. And then she's on the next book. I'm like, well, you liked it enough to get the next book. She's like, well, I'm not a quitter. I've got to finish the series. I'm like, I would have stopped by finishing the first book, not the whole series. I'm like, gosh, would that sort of like weight over me? I would never start a series. Can you imagine if you didn't like Harry Potter? Like, that would just never end. You
just have to do it. You have to keep reading it.
Yeah. Although I will tell you, the one book I started and said there's no way I can get into this was the Song of Fire and Ice, with the whole series that was just on HBO.
Oh yeah.
George, I can't think of his last name, but that was just too well written for me to appreciate. It wasn't
some of them, like, I mean,
my level.
there's some books that have been great series like Game of Thrones and,
Yes.
Lord of the Rings. And I will tell you, I've started reading the books. I just can't read the book. I think it was so well done in video that I just can't read the book. So it's just better to try reading it first, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, I feel better. If you weren't able to get through them, then I'm in good company.
DNF is a real thing.
DNF, I like that. So, well, Kriti, I really appreciate you making time for this conversation. I've had a blast, and it's amazing how fast 58 minutes goes.
Can you believe we spent an hour talking about books? Like, oh, thank you so much, because this is the one thing I love talking about. So I can't believe that I got to spend an hour with you talking about books. So thank you.
Well, my pleasure. And to the 16-year-old myself, if you ever go back and look at this, like you can read. You can get there. You'll love it.
You'd be proud of us.
You would very much be proud of us.